You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to The Bible Guys.
Woohoo!
We're glad you're here, and we have a great episode in store for you.
We sure do. It's going to be incredible.
Yes.
Everyone this week, we've said that.
Yes.
So surely we're going to get one of them.
And have we overpromised and underdelivered, Jeff?
Well, I don't know. People keep coming back.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
they do. They kind of do.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's so funny. I see the numbers sometimes, and I always wonder, like, are those the same people, or are they people who fluctuate? Who, you know, it's kind of like when you see the crowd at church, right? You're like, are these the same people? Do they only come to church once a month? Mm-hmm. You know, are they faithful people? What percentage of people come every week?
So on the YouTube side, so I don't get as good metrics. We're working on getting a new dashboard to figure out all the podcast side. But on the YouTube side, it's usually hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of new listeners joining the 1,000 regular listeners. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a neat thing. I don't have that in front of me right now, but there's it doesn't want to open up. But so lots of long timers stay with us, and you're with us every day, and then on a regular basis, it's all the time. More and more people. Hey, by the way, we just crossed our 2,000th listener, subscriber on YouTube.
On YouTube,
yeah. And you know who it was?
Who?
I looked at it, and we were at $19.99, and I was sitting at my dinner table.
That's a good song.
And I asked all my whole family, hey, who hasn't signed up yet, subscribed? And it was my daughter-in-law who hadn't subscribed, so she went on and she was number 2,000. I literally watched it click over to 2,000 subscribers.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun. Hey, did you know this? Let me tell you. Well, no, I'm going to keep it a secret.
Oh, okay.
I have a secret.
Well, today's Friday, Jeff. So
today's Thursday.
No. Friday for the podcast.
No, today's Thursday for the podcast.
Oh, am I skipping over a week?
Yes, you are, because the episode tomorrow is a very special episode. Big celebration. Yeah. So today we moved things, and we're changing things up this week because tomorrow's a special episode. So on this Thursday, the big question is, it's everybody's favorite segment, what made Chris mad this week?
Oh, they are doing. Oh, they moved it up to Thursday.
Yeah. So it's Thursday.
Okay.
So this Thursday, because you're such a man of routine. That's what happened.
It took me a while to digest that.
Yeah. So we're just changing things up, Chris. Sorry, we moved it out of order.
Yes.
But on this episode, because tomorrow's a very special episode.
Yes.
So on this, we decided to move this forward to everybody's favorite segment. What made Chris mad this week?
Okay, I'm up to speed.
And it's because you love us. You love us, and you are angry on behalf of all the rest of us.
I do. I am angry on behalf of... You know why?
We feel loved.
My wife has a saying, and she says all the time, she says, it doesn't take a lot of effort to be kind. That's
true.
It really does not.
It doesn't.
My son and I went into... This is what made me mad. My son and I went into a place. I'm not going to name the restaurant, but it was a restaurant.
Wise.
It was a restaurant that was it was really popular at one point, and then the management ran amok. There was like a big reputation in the city that it was under poor management, and then the attendance went down. Then somebody bought it, and they put these signs up, and the name they gave it, the new name was a terrible name, but they said under new management, all these different things. So my son finally says, "Hey, let's go check out that revised, renovated restaurant, whatever." So we walk in, and turns out it was great. And we met the owner, and the food was fine, and the environment was fantastic. He was great. And he said, it hasn't gone very well. I was like,
wow.
Huh. So then what ended up happening was the other day, I said, hey, where do you want to go? And he says, let's go back and let's support this restaurant that didn't seem to be doing very well. I was like, all right, let's do that. So we went there, and we walked in, and he was not there. And there was an employee, apparently, who was running the show. And she was behind the bar. She was on the floor. She was, just running the whole entire restaurant, right? And we sat in a booth, and we waited. We looked at our watches. It was 13 minutes, okay? And she had walked by us like 12 times. And when I mean walk by us, I'm talking like within, I could reach out and touch her. That's how close she walked by us. And she never once said, hey guys, I'll be with you in a minute. Or, hey, welcome to so-and-so, right? She literally ignored us, and we were sitting there for like 12 or 13 minutes. And I thought to myself, okay, now I know why this guy's restaurant is failing. Because of probably a few really, really bad employees, right?
Yeah.
And it was her. And so here's what I don't appreciate. Here's what got me mad this week. I was mad on two fronts, Jeff.
Okay, I'm super excited now.
Not just one front.
I mean, you laid some groundwork here.
But two fronts.
Two. We're getting a double whammy.
Yes.
It's a double whammy.
Yes.
What made Chris mad this week?
Here's the first
double
front.
feature.
Here's the first front. If you are a server, it does not take a lot of effort to smile and say, I don't care what kind of bad day you're having. This is your job. Okay. And say, hey, I'll be right with you. That's it. That's all we wanted. Right. We would have waited the 15 minutes for a menu.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And by the way, guess how many people were in the restaurant? Like 8.
Well,
it was bad.
Okay.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
Okay. So she could have, like, it wasn't like her running the whole restaurant. Oh, I felt so bad for the server. She was the only one. No, people, listen to me. It was a party of 6 and one other booth of 2. That's it. In the whole restaurant. Okay.
Wow.
And so anyway, that's the first front.
One.
The second front made me 3 times as mad.
Ooh.
Which is, why is it that we, as young adults, and she was probably mid-20s, why is it that young adults can't think beyond themselves sometimes and actually think like, hey, listen, maybe I'll do something for the benefit of the owner, right? Like maybe I'll try really bad. Like, why don't I care about somebody else's restaurant, right? Why don't I actually think to myself, hey, I better really be kind, because I like my boss. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
I want this to succeed, right? Instead of being wrapped up in your own world. And sure, there may be extreme circumstances on what kind of day you're having, but for the most part, I'm guessing that she wasn't that distraught. She didn't look that distraught. So guess what we did? We got up and left.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, we got up and left.
So that owner, it's not getting any better. Wow. So Chris, you learned.
I seriously thought about going back to that restaurant and finding the owner and saying, I figured out your problem.
Yeah.
I really have.
Hey, it might. Yeah. Go serve him. Help him.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. Okay. Well, thank you, Chris, for that. That is a double feature.
Yes.
Super. 2 for the price of 1.
It doesn't take that much effort to be kind.
Fantastic.
People.
I know, but
just
for
smile.
For you to vicariously carry all of the anger that the rest of us should be having in society.
Yes.
And you being willing to carry it for us.
It's a tough burden, Jeff.
And that's right. Is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. When very quickly, when I was working for Marriott, one of back then they had this kind of structure where managers would be promoted kind of in a train. So a manager would build his team, and when he'd get promoted, a lot of times the people on his team would follow right behind him. So you hit your wagon to the right train, you can move up in the organization pretty quickly. And I learned that I would succeed far more by making my boss win than by making me win.
Right.
Right? And if I could make it, what I wanted him to do is know that I was helping him. Right. So it wasn't like I was just doing it generically, but I was engaging in this relationship, and I was only 20 years old. And I was engaging in this relationship. I was trying to figure out what was important to him, what was important to his boss. I wanted to know his boss. I wanted to figure out all those things and figure out how to create the thing that he was trying to create. So my boss was one of the real up and comers. He just was doing a great job. And as he got bumped up, so did I. I wound up making more money, bonuses, all that kind of stuff came behind when I was helping my boss win. So I didn't own that hotel. Right. I wasn't a manager. I wasn't, but as he succeeded, so did I. And my life was better. And it wound up giving me more purpose at work. It was more fun. It was a more fun job to do when I knew that my productivity would help all of us get better, right? As fulfilling his vision.
There it is.
Yeah.
Generation Z, listen up.
There's something about that.
There's a word of wisdom right there.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much, Chris. And then, like I said, tomorrow's a very special day. So our listeners don't want to miss out on the episode follows this episode today.
Do they know why it's a special day?
No, I don't think so.
I almost blew it.
I think if they look around a little bit, they might figure it out, but I'm not going to tell them.
Okay, all right.
Because tomorrow's the big day.
Ooh, big day.
Okay, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, so we are in 1 Samuel, and let me give you some background. Up to this point now, Samuel was like a boy, a young man, and serving Eli. God speaks to him. He continues to be faithful through the time. Eli continues to work. Eventually, Eli dies, as God had said. The Philistines are causing trouble. They actually come in, they raid, they steal the Ark of the Covenant. It gets really bad. Then they decide, God brings judgment on them for stealing the Ark of the Covenant. They decide to bring it back. They just give it back. Okay, we don't want this anymore. It's a really funny story.
Too much trouble.
It's a really funny story. You should read it. It's in 1 Samuel, first couple chapters. And then it comes to a town. And like all these people go, hey, let's go look and see what's in the Ark of the Covenant. And they open the Ark of the Covenant and 70 people die. God said, do not touch the Ark of the Covenant. They did. They opened it up. If I found the Ark of the Covenant, I'd want to look at it.
Well,
it happened in Indiana Jones.
It was.
It happened in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, the guys.
They opened it up and they melted, right?
Yeah.
So God's not messing around.
One guy exploded.
Yeah, God's not messing around. He says, don't touch the Ark of the Covenant. They do, they die. So then they're like, hey, get this thing out of here. And they send it back. They reestablish the tabernacle, all those kinds of things. This whole time, Samuel now is the leader. He leads the people in this incredible victory battle against the Philistines. God wins the battle actually with thunder. He scares the Philistines with this really intimidating thunder. They're frozen in fear, and the Israelites are able to defeat them. And finally, it brings a little bit of peace. So now Samuel has led the nation for years and years and years, and now he's starting to get some years on him. He's getting some miles on him. He's becoming an older man. His children have grown up. They're adults. He's doing ministry all around the country. So with that being said, in chapter 8, it says, as Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons to be judges over Israel. Joel and Abijah, his oldest sons, held court in Beersheba. But they were not like their father, for they were greedy for money, and they accepted bribes and perverted justice. Finally, all the elders of Israel met at Ramah to discuss the matter with Samuel. Look, they told him, you are now old, and your sons are not like you. Give us a king to judge us, like all the other nations have. Samuel was displeased with their request and went to the Lord for guidance. Do everything they say to you, the Lord replied, for it is me they are rejecting, not you. They don't want me to be their king any longer. Ever since I brought them from Egypt, they have continually abandoned me and followed other gods, and now they're giving you the same treatment. Do as they ask, but solemnly warn them about the way the king will reign over them. So Samuel passed on the Lord's warning to the people who were asking him for a king. This is how a king will reign over you, Samuel said. The king will draft your sons and assign them to his chariots and his charioteers, making them run before his chariots. Some will be generals and captains in his army. Some will be forced to plow in his fields and harvest his crops, and some will make his weapons and chariot equipment. The king will take your daughters from you and force them to cook and bake and make perfumes for him. He will take away the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his own officials. He'll take a tenth of your grain and your grape harvest and distribute it among his officers and attendants. He'll take your male and female slaves and demand the finest of your cattle and donkeys for his own use. He'll demand a tenth of your flocks, and you will be his slaves. When that day comes, you will beg for relief from this king you are demanding, but then the Lord will not help you. But the people refused to listen to Samuel's warning. Even so, we still want a king, they said. We want to be like the nations around us. Our king will judge us and lead us into battle. So Samuel repeated to the Lord what the people had said, and the Lord replied, do as they say, and give them a king. Then Samuel agreed and sent the people home.
Yeah, it's, this reminds me of, this is a very strange analogy, but I remember when I was about 8 years old, I tried to sneak a cigarette from my mom.
Uh-oh.
And she smoked at that time. And I
think everybody smoked back then.
Yeah, back then.
I think we all smoked.
You're right.
We all smoked. Right. I didn't light up, but man, every restaurant you went to, full of smoke. Every plane you got on, full of smoke. Everything was just secondhand smoke.
Yep. We all smoked and didn't want to.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I remember I was trying to sneak a cigarette, and I was trying to hide it, and I had a lighter, and I was heading out, and she was sitting there with her friend, and she saw me, and she goes, what do you got there? And she busted me. And I said, oh, it's a cigarette, and I thought I was going to get in trouble. And she goes, oh. She goes, you know what? She goes, why don't you go ahead and light that up? And I was like 8 years old. And I said, what? Are you serious? And she's like, yeah, let's do that right now. She goes, let's go ahead and do it. So she took it and she lit it up and she goes, go ahead and puff it. So I went, poof. And she goes, no. She goes, you have to inhale. Let me show you. So she grabbed the cigarette. She all the way like this. And she goes, go ahead, do that. So I did it. And then I, of course, just gagged, right? I just started coughing and
Oh, no.
And then they made fun of me. In front of everybody, in front of like the whole room of women. And they were just pointing and laughing. And she goes, now give me that thing. And she goes, now get out of here and don't ever touch that again. And guess what? It worked.
Wow.
I never came close to anything like that. I thought to myself, I'm like, well, she gave me what I wanted, right? And I got what it was
And
coming
I wished
to me.
I hadn't had it.
And I wish I hadn't had it.
Yeah.
It's all that to me. It's like it also reminds me of Luke chapter 15, where it says, "Remember, the younger came to him and begged, 'Give me the share of my inheritance.'"
Oh, right.
And it says, then his father just gave it to him.
Right.
And it's like it's almost like you almost wonder if what the father was saying to the younger son was, "I think this is the only way you're going to learn, because you're going to learn by misery." And you have chosen misery, and you won't stop. You're convinced that this is what you want. I'm going to give you what you want, and you're going to see, and you're going to learn the hard way. And Samuel, hears from God, and God basically says, they've done this continually, right?
Right.
Judges have ruled for 300 years, and Samuel, and longer than that now, because Samuel's old, right?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like what God is saying is like, hey, tell them all the bad that's coming. Tell them it's a bad idea, but give them what they want, because they just won't shut up.
Right.
They just won't stop.
Right.
They're like children.
He's fed up with it.
Yes. And that's that to me. So when I read that, I think of my mom's cigarette.
Yeah. So them getting their king was almost a punishment from God.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It
Give
really
them
was.
give what they want, and then they'll see.
Yeah.
Right.
And at that point, there's no getting out of it.
Right.
So it's interesting. Samuel, as an old man, the Bible says that he had set up. There were 3. Let me see if I can find those cities. There were 3 cities that he had set up. Each year he traveled around setting up his court, first at Bethel, then at Gilgal, and then at Mizpah. He judged Israel out of these places, and then he'd return home to Ramah, and he'd hear cases there, right?
Yeah.
So he had these 4 places where he was kind of like this itinerant judge that would travel around Israel, provide justice. He'd provide godly leadership. He'd do all these things. And the people loved Samuel.
Yes.
They loved him. But Samuel's sons just didn't have any character.
Those PKs.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So God held Eli accountable for his sons.
Actually, it'd be JK. Sorry.
Yeah. God held Eli accountable for his sons.
Yeah.
And hey, you're going to lose your ministry, and you and your sons are going to die. But there's not that same kind of consequence for Samuel. And I often think, I wonder why. And I think I might know why. I think Samuel, I think Eli, the Bible's pretty clear. Eli knew that his sons were doing the wrong thing.
And he was warned.
Yeah, and he didn't do anything about it. He was allowing them to do the wrong thing. And a lot of times, parents, oh, well, you know how Johnny is. That's just how his personality is. That's just what he does. And we don't want to confront them. And it seems like maybe that was a pattern the boy's whole life. Like he indulged them and spoiled them rotten. And so God was like, hey, you are the cause. You are the one you're the enabler for that. As opposed to in this situation now, Samuel is an old man, and in his old age, he appoints his adult sons, who now, it's not about how Samuel raised his sons. It's about how his sons are choosing to behave as adults, right? I think that there's a difference here probably because he's an old man appointing his grown men sons, and it turns out when the opportunity, because I think you just don't know. You don't know how you're going to respond until you get around money. You don't know how you're going to respond until you get around power. You don't know how you're going to respond until you get around temptations of any kind, right?
Right.
And in this situation, it turns out that his sons were very tempted by money, and they were taking bribes. But it wasn't that Samuel was endorsing it. Samuel wasn't winking at it. Samuel wasn't going, oh, well, you know how my sons are. It was more like, apart from, your adult children can do whatever they want to do. You're not in control anymore. Whereas with Eli, it seems like that was the pattern of their boys' lives, and the dad was the one that was co-signing it. Eli, it seemed like maybe was enabling. And so God held Eli accountable along with the sons, as opposed to here. But that made Israel frustrated. Israel was frustrated because they were like, we don't want these guys leading us. They're not as good as you, so give us a king.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, there's a little chart in the Life Application Study Bible that talks about every warning that Samuel gave to them was fulfilled.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So when he says he'll draft young men into your army, he said that in verse number 11 and 12. if you fast forward just what was it, six chapters later, it says, so whenever Saul observed a young man who was brave and strong, he drafted him into his army.
Yep.
Yeah. So whenever Saul, which is the name of the king.
I want that one. I want that one.
Yep.
I want that one.
Yep. And then it says, having the young man run before his chariots, in chapter 15, that came, to fruition. Making slave laborers. 2 Chronicles chapter 2, it happened. That's how kings behave, right? Solomon did that.
Yeah.
Taking the best of your fields and vineyards. In 1 Kings, the future kings stole Naboth's vineyard. At least that was an example. That probably happened way before that.
Yeah, sure.
Right, and then demanding a tenth of your harvest and flocks. Well, there's examples of that as well, right, in 1 Kings, and I'm sure it happened. So everything that Samuel said happened, and what they're saying is we want to be more like everybody around us. We're tired of being different. Right? Yeah. We're tired of being the outcasts, the one that aren't looked upon with respect, the ones that aren't feared like the other ones. Perhaps people don't understand the fact that our king is invisible.
Right.
Our king is we don't want that anymore. And ever since God says they've done this ever since we've delivered them from slavery. Yeah. From Egypt. Yeah. They've said these things.
James Madison said, one of the founding fathers of America said that we've staked our ability to be free people on our ability to keep the Ten Commandments, right? So we've staked this whole nation on the idea that we would choose to be moral people. We are freest when we choose to limit ourselves and govern ourselves under the laws of God. And we are less and less free the more we require government to force us to do what the general population believes is the right thing to do, right? And so this is exactly what happened. God was like, you're free. You are free people.
Right.
Right? Other than your tithes and offerings to the to the tabernacle, there's nothing else. You just do good in the community. You live free, own your land, do your thing, run your businesses. And he says, if you choose to throw off this freedom for a powerful government, this government will take everything from you. You will never be free again. Right? And that's exactly what happened to them. And so our founding fathers, they referenced these ideas.
Right.
In their writings, they talked about this specifically, that this whole concept that if we put a king or if we make a strong government, it'll take everything from us.
Do you remember the motto of Jamestown? Mm-mm. So Jamestown, one of our first, settling nations, right?
Settlements.
Settlements, yeah. Or what did I say, nations? Yeah. Settlements in our nation. Mm-hmm. They actually had a motto, and the motto was, love God fully, then do what you want.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. Be free.
Yeah, be free.
Well, I love that. So there is a note, and maybe this is the right place to end because it's so practical to our culture today. 1 Samuel chapter 8, 5, and 6 in the Life Application Bible says, the people clamored for a king, thinking that a new system of government would bring about a change in the nation. But because their basic problem was disobedience to God, their other problems would only continue under the new administration when what they needed was a unified faith, not a uniform rule. Had the Israelites submitted to God's leadership, they would have thrived beyond their expectations. Our obedience is weak if we ask God to lead our family or personal life, but continue to live by the world's standards and values. Faith in God must touch all the practical areas of life. So they were looking at the other kingdoms of the world and going, we want what the world has. And God's like, I'm offering you so much more, right? And they thought that a change in their political system would make all the difference. And I think right now we've got a lot of people on both sides of the aisle thinking, man, a change in the political system make all the difference in the world. And it won't, because most of our problems in our society are because of our rebellion against God, not because we need one more policy or one more law.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And the kings we choose will never fulfill us or take care of us like they promise. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, look, that looks like it's our time. So hopefully tomorrow for a very special episode.
Big day.
You'll tune in just out of sheer curiosity.
Yes.
Hopefully, and we'll see you then on the Bible Guys.